Welcome. This is the Know Your Numbers podcast with your host, Chris McCormick. Today, I have a very special guest in the name of Adam Knihtila. Adam is, quite frankly, the best dressed that we've had on the show, and I'm excited to be sharing his perspective here. He has a fractional CFO practice. He has a background in accounting, finance, tax, as well as actuarial. I believe they're called sciences. Adam, welcome to the show. Please just introduce yourself to the guest or to the audience.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, I do, I tend to, to rock my bow tie when I go onto podcasts and do speaking events and things like that, because it sets me apart. It's part of my overall brand image, so to speak. And yeah, you hit on all the high points. I'm a fractional CFO at this point, work primarily with digital marketing agencies to basically make that top line revenue go through the roof. So I'm not that typical CFO that's like, cut this, cut that, cut this, cut that. What can we invest in to make that revenue go up? Do we need more salespeople? Do we need to actually do our own marketing? Even though we're a marketing agency and we work for all these other companies, are we actually doing those things for ourselves?
That's incredible, man. And yeah, that's a great way to start off. I see that you're offering $100K in additional revenue for 45 minutes of your time. You tell people that you can find that, and I fully believe that you can. So what are some of the things that you consider when it comes to somebody running their own business, ways to make additional money?
Right. I call it couch cushion money. So it's money that literally is already inside your business. You just need to actually capitalize on it. So, a big piece I look at in that 100K challenge is what's their pricing at. If they raise their prices by 3%, 5%, 7%, 10%, how much more revenue is that going to create? As well as, now that you're raising prices, are you going to lose some customers because of that? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes they're like, finally, you actually raised your prices. I've been underpaying this whole time and loving it, and I'm still underpaying for for what I'm getting from you. So it looks at that. It looks at kind of holistically at their marketing and advertising. Are they upselling current customers? Are they cross-selling current customers? Are they putting an offer out there like my 100K challenge that's compelling, that's like, I only have to spend 45 minutes and he's going to find $100,000.
Right.
And what I tell people is like, when is the last time that in 45 minutes anybody out there actually found you $100,000 just literally laying around in the couch cushions of your business?
That's awesome. And I think that the price discussion is one that needs to be had more often, but it is a tough conversation to have, especially as a business owner. A lot of the people that you work with, I'm sure, and a lot of people that I cross paths with are in that service mindset. They don't want to ask too much, but they do deserve quite a bit. Like, they're providing a lot of value and not necessarily getting what they deserve. So I'd love to hear your take on the conversation that you might have with a client when you're going to discuss a price increase, and how do you know that it's time to increase your prices, and what are some of the things to look for?
Well, the first thing that I always look at is, when is the last time they did a price increase? Like, if they just did one a month ago, now is probably not necessarily the best time to do that. But with everything that's going on in the economy, inflation's at 7%. Last year it was at like 2%. So, some of that precipitates a quicker movement there, because otherwise you're literally giving money away.
Right.
So it's part of it's looking at that timing, and then it's also that, like you said, that messaging. Like, how do I tell the customers? How do I inform the customers? Is it I just go out and sell to new customers at these prices, and then whenever they're up for a renewal, then the price increase comes in then? Or is it I go out to new customers plus I go to all the existing customers and say, this is a mid-contract change. These are the new prices going forward. If you still want to work together, this is what you'll be paying. If you don't want to work together anymore, you can opt out, at that point. And, so there's having those kind of conversations with customers. Because again, at the end you don't want them to churn, but sometimes using that price increase to get the customers you don't want to work with any longer, or that don't fit what you're doing any longer, to get them to move on, because you know that they're not going to afford or want to pay that new price. It's sometimes a very tactful way to do that both parties can walk away and be like, oh, we didn't have to have an acrimonious, split. You decided to raise your prices. I can't afford that price, so I'm going to leave, instead of you having to fire them.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And I think that's something that everybody, because usually you start off and you can't offer too much for your services because you're just getting started, but then you realize when you start to grow, and usually you grow faster than you might intend, that those original prices don't match anywhere near what the value you're providing. So it's good that you're out there professing this and providing people with information to help with those conversations. And now, Adam, you mentioned your what I'll call a niche with the marketing agency. I'd love to hear your take on the niche discussion, because everybody in business says, not everybody, but a lot of people in business say you can't get anywhere without a niche. But then from my perspective, I see that as a lot of times deterring people from getting started. So I'd love to hear how the niche has served you, what brought you to the marketing agency niche, and any tips you might have for somebody that either needs a niche or won't get started because they don't have a niche.
Right. So yeah, that is, it's one of the conversations that happens is, should you niche? Should you not niche? So the people that you should niche are like, if you aren't speaking to one particular group, you're not talking to anybody. And then the other side of the coin is, well, if you're talking to everyone's a potential client, and you have a much bigger pool to go out there, so there's pros and cons to both sides. How I got there is, it was a long, and I've niched and re-niched probably 3 or 4 different times in the last 2 years. So when I started the fractional CFO practice, I went general to start out with. I was like, I'm just going to, float this out there and see what comes back, to, see who starts getting attracted to me. Or, and as I started having conversations, people were like, well, what's your experience in? What's your background in? And from those conversations, it kind of keyed some things off in my head, like, oh, well, I have a lot of experience in health insurance, medical, doctors, etc. Well, 2020, not a great time to be focusing on medical doctors, because either they were extremely busy or they were closed. And in either case, they didn't have time to talk to me. So then I kind of backed off that and went more generalized again to kind of put the feelers out there. And then I started, instead of niching to an industry, I niched to a personality. So I went to creatives. So, and this is where, getting into the digital marketing, which we'll get into in a moment, digital marketing agencies, photographers, videographers, graphic designers, artists, kind of all those, I don't know which side of the brain, left side, right side, whichever side is the artistic side. Those were the people that I was focused on marketing to. And then as I started getting into that with offering my services, most of those people are solopreneurs. They're on their own. They don't have a team. They aren't going to grow a team. It's just them, their art, their graphics, things like that. So I was like, okay, of all of these creatives, which of these actually can sustain, one, to afford what I'm charging them, and two, can build a team and can build to into a bigger company. And that's where I landed on the digital marketing agencies at that point. So it's been an interesting process, and trial and error. But now I feel very comfortable with it. My messaging is much better because it's focused along those lines, and it just makes that conversation easier. And that isn't to say that I will say no to someone else. It's like, oh, I have to work with you. So I kind of employ like a 70-30 rule. Like I want to have 70% of my clients at least in that digital marketing agency niche. And then 30% just whoever comes along that sees me and is like, oh, I've got to work with that guy because of whatever, their reason might be. Because of his bow tie. I've got to work with him because
that's what
of the
I was going to say. Oh, that's awesome, man. That's good. Um, wow, there's a lot to unpack there, but I would like to kind of touch upon what it took you to find the niche, and more specifically, when you touched upon firms that can't necessarily afford your services. And for business owners, oftentimes, especially if you're early on in the business stage, it can be tempting to go after a not so great offer just to make the quick buck and for lack of a better word, survive. I'd love to hear how you dealt with that. Was it again a learning curve, or was your experience in the corporate world and your previous endeavor kind of a good stage to set yourself up on?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing that I look at is, um, there's different cost savings and investments. So, a full-time CFO for most companies is going to run you, 200,000 a year plus.
Yep.
So my service significantly more affordable than that.
Yeah.
But for a company that's, under 100,000, under 200,000 in total revenue, for them to hire me, I'm taking all of their profit.
Yeah, right,
basically.
Right. Yep.
In a lot of cases. So, so part of it is, when I'm screening clients on the front end, one of my screening is basically, ranges as far as how much revenue they're doing right now. So I kind of have a floor set at 500,000. So if you're doing a 500,000 a year in revenue,
Yep.
then we can move on to kind of the next piece of the conversation as well. And I don't need to, I don't ask them for the exact number because that's not important. I don't ask them for profit or anything like that. But again, it's just one of those screening questions that's part of the marketing and sales process to ensure that, if someone's like, oh, I saw your 100K challenge, I'm making $10,000 a year right now. I would love for you to find me $100,000.
Right.
I cannot work that kind of a miracle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish I could.
Right.
But there has to be some, experience. There has to be some growth that's already been there. And, they're looking to take that next step and they don't know where to go. They've got their bookkeeper, they've got their payroll. They, probably I would hope they have a tax accountant.
Yep.
Sometimes it's all the same person. Sometimes it's multiple.
Right.
But, one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, I ask them to help me, create a strategy. Am I doing the best stuff for taxes? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And they respond with, I don't do that, or they don't respond, or or things like that. And it's like, perfect.
Yeah.
That, because a lot of those roles, it's very transactional. It's take this, transaction, put it into the, into the chart of accounts. Take this transaction, put it in the chart of accounts, prepare this tax return, file it with the IRS, pay this payroll tax payment, run this payroll. It's transactional. And that's where I did that before. I had an accounting firm and took care of all of those kind of things. But where I am now is, instead of looking back at all the stuff that has happened, I'm looking forward to all the stuff that will and could happen. And taking that data and turning it into strategies.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think that's something that all CPAs, all accounting firm owners can take from, because I think, quite frankly, from where I see, that's much more valuable than what the past says, because any business owner that's looking too much at the past isn't looking at the future, and the future is what dictates whether you succeed or not. So
well, and especially this time of year, like we're heading into tax season. And for some business owners, this is the only time of the year that they look at their financials. And and if they file an extension and they're waiting till October to actually look at their, some of that stuff is 18 months old. That has no bearing on what your business is doing today. I want to know what this January is doing, not what last January did.
Amen. And that's such a great transition, because one of the things that I see in a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners is that lack of financial knowledge, or just lack of care for what their numbers are saying, because they say, oh yeah, we're making sales, like we can afford everything, but they don't pay attention, and sales don't necessarily equal profit and money in the pocket. So I'd love to hear your take on the business owner that struggles to keep up with the finances, the importance of knowing your numbers, really, because that's what this podcast was founded on. So from a guy in the numbers industry, I would love for you to share a little bit into the insights of a company's financial statements.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I always try to help my clients with is but a lot of time I'll ask them questions. I'll be like, how much do you have in accounts payable, or how much do you have in accounts receivable? And their initial answer is, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So then they either have to go to their bookkeeper or accountant or try to do it themselves and look for it. But in that process, they figure out, oh, I have this customer that hasn't paid me in 3 months.
Right.
I didn't even realize that they hadn't paid me in 3 months. And, I've had clients where it's like $50,000 or more in outstanding invoices that they haven't been paid on, and they didn't even realize it. And so from there, it becomes a learning point, like, oh, all right, well, now we need to put a process in place for accounts receivable. We need to go out there and, maybe it's institute penalties, maybe it's institute incentives. Maybe it's just asking them and be like, hey, did you get the invoice? Because if it went to spam and they didn't technically receive it, they didn't know that you even sent it in the first place. So, it's getting those processes in place and those communication pieces in place of, this matters. I did all of this work for you already. I sent you an invoice and you haven't paid me. Like what's the deal here? So it goes into those conversations. And then, it becomes that talking point, like, do we want this client to renew with us because they're always 3 months behind in paying us? Or do we need to not renew with them and go find someone else to replace that slot in our, in our revenue cycle to make that happen? So, it gets into that strategic and gets into that looking forward instead of looking back at all the, all the data. So, so there's things like that of, and for smaller business owners too, it's just putting a process in place. Maybe it's every Monday, and that's, the first thing you do when you go in is you look at everything from the previous week or the previous 2 weeks or whatever, or maybe it's the last thing on Friday before you had held the door for the weekend. You look at those kind of things. I usually suggest Monday for doing it. Because then you don't ruin your weekend if you had a bad week or two. You instead, it gives you that motivation, like, oh, well, I need to, push harder this week to get more sales or, do whatever, because last week wasn't as good. Instead of it being Friday, now it's like, oh, well, I was going to go, out to eat this weekend, and I was going to go on a short little vacation, but, I missed my sales goal by 50% this week. So now I don't have the money to do it. So, it's that, again, it's that mindset piece of, okay, Monday morning, whatever time you get in, 8 a.m., 10 a.m., noon, take 10 minutes, run, have a couple reports saved that you can just hit rerun and it pulls, the most recent period, look at it, analyze it a little bit, and then, then go check your emails and figure out, what exploded over the last, 48 hours while you were gone. So those little processes and those little habits are really important, because then you start seeing patterns like, oh, last week I did 10,000 in sales. The week before that I did 8. The week before that I did 12. Why is it fluctuating like that? Is it, oh, well, there was a holiday and we were closed for a day and that week when we only did 8. Or we did a new marketing campaign the week that we did 12, so there was a bump in sales. So it's, again, you start seeing some of those patterns, and again, it's that strategic looking forward on those numbers and using that to, like, oh, well, that marketing campaign did really well that week. We bumped our sales up by 20%. Well, maybe we need to run that again and see what kind of bump it has, or tweak it a little bit and try to make it even better. Like figure out, oh, in our A/B testing that week, this message did well, that one didn't. Well, let's run a full, campaign with just that one to everybody this time around and see what kind of sales that creates. So, it starts, spinning out of just, the financial numbers into, the operations and the marketing and, the customer service and, everything else that affects, your bottom line. But it all, it draws off that revenue.
Right. Yep. No, that's so good. And basically what you're explaining is the power of habit and the importance of having habits and business habits specifically. And Adam, from what I know, this is something that's frequent in your life. You're a man of processes and systems. And the reason I know this is because you post on LinkedIn the same time every day. And so I'd love to hear how habits and implementing processes and systems has served you in your personal life, in your business life, and any tidbits that might be useful for just about anybody.
Yeah. So up until like through the end of the year,
Yep.
at the end of 2021, I was a post whenever I felt like it,
Mm-hmm.
post whenever a thought popped into my head that I felt like posting about. But I took Justin Welsh's LinkedIn operating system course.
Okay.
He had a deal the last couple of days of the year. It was like $90, and it was like 2 hours of time to like go through the whole thing. I was like, I've got $90. I've got 2 hours of time.
Yeah.
Let me do this. So one of the things he suggests in there is post at the same time every day and basically announce to everybody in the world what time you're going to post every day. So it becomes that appointment based, viewing basically.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of experts like, you need to post at 7 a.m. Eastern, you need to post at noon Eastern, you need to post here, you need to post there. Because I'm a little bit different with these kind of things. I was like, well, I don't want to be inundated in the middle of that morning posting rush.
Yeah.
So I picked 3:57 p.m. Eastern every single weekday.
Yeah.
So I use a software product called Loomly. It's a posting scheduler. So I can go in whenever, create my post, hit schedule, and at 3:57 p.m. Eastern on every weekday, it sends that post out for people to, consume and look at and everything like that. And that has been, it's only been a couple weeks now, has been huge because one, I've had probably half a dozen people that I regularly interact with go, well, why did you pick 3:57? And I was like, that's why, because it got you to ask the question. And I have a whole list of reasons why, which I'll get into in a moment. But it also has become that appointment viewing of now people know I'm posting every weekday 3:57. So if it's 4:30 and they haven't seen the post, just wander through their feed, they can go over to my profile, look at my posts, and there's today's post, at 3:57 and be able to interact with it instead of before where it was. Sometimes it was 7 a.m., sometimes it was 7 p.m., sometimes it was noon, sometimes it was midnight, sometimes it was 3 times a day, sometimes it was once a day, sometimes it was not at all. So it's built that consistency in there. And as far as why I picked 3:57, one thing is in the the money finance industry. New York Stock Exchange closes at 4:00. So if I post at 3:57, as all of those financial advisors and traders that follow me are closing up shop for the day, they can put in those final trades for the day, and then they can come read my post. Or if they're putting in those final trades, they can wait till 4:01 when the market's actually closed and then come see my post.
Wow.
So there's that piece. I like the number 7 in my marketing, so I try to use that as much as possible. And then some of the other things I said, I didn't want to be in the morning rush of posting, just because there's there's an enormous amount of posting going on from 7 to 9 a.m. And then the other piece too is I have clients all across the US. So 3:57 Eastern is 12:57 on the West Coast. So when they're coming back from lunch, the first thing they're seeing when they hop on LinkedIn, when they come back from lunch, is my post.
Wow.
And there's not as much competition. There's hardly anyone posting in that kind of 3 to 5 o'clock window, but then it sits there, for the whole evening. So as people, they go home, they do their family stuff, they have dinner, they sit down in their chair, and they pull open LinkedIn. Oh, well, there's Adam's post from 2 hours ago. Because the other posts are 8 hours ago and 10 hours ago at that point.
Yeah. Dude, I think you cracked the code.
The results so far have been good.
Yeah.
my biggest post, recently was my post about whether there should be beans in chili. So
Yeah, I think I did see that.
so not exactly finance or money related, but on the weekend I like to have some fun. So I was like, well, I'd been having a conversation with some people the day before, and was like, well, I'm gonna throw this out there to to LinkedIn, and I did it as a poll because polls are getting big results right now.
Yeah, well,
So I got like 400 plus votes in 24 hours and over 100 comments, and
oh my
like
gosh.
I think it's at like 15,000 views or something like that at this point, all asking about whether or not there should be beans in chili.
That
So
is
for
beautiful,
anyone that
man.
wants to go and see that, just go through my post history. It's in there.
Wow. Oh my gosh, dude. That's incredible. And wow. I want to dive in a little bit because this is something that I'm still figuring out is content creation, specifically content on LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear a little bit more. I mean, you dove into quite a bit there, but prior to your strategy and your process here, what was your experience with posting on LinkedIn or maybe other social media, and how would you go about recommending that to somebody? Because it is useful, it's so important, but like you said, if you're posting at 8 a.m. every day, most people might not see it. So you got me rethinking things, and I'd love to hear some of that. But,
Yeah, and that for people that are just starting, and
mhm,
for them to kind of practice posting content, what
yep,
I always tell them is comment on other people's posts.
yeah, okay,
Because one, it starts that conversation with whoever posted.
hmm,
And then the second part is that other people will see your comments on their posts.
yeah,
And this is this is one of the strategies that Justin mentions in his course as well, is like he posts at 8:15 Eastern, which is 7:15 Central every single day.
right,
Well, he's got 150,000 people following him, and his posts regularly get 100,000 plus views.
yeah,
So if you comment on his post at 8:15 or 8:15 and 20 seconds, and you're one of those first 20 people, theoretically 100,000 people could see your comment on his post,
yep,
depending on how LinkedIn lines it up. So there's that piece of, you never know who's going to see your comment on that
hmm,
post, and it's not as much putting yourself out there as literally making your own post and hitting post.
yeah, yep,
So it gives you some of that practice in interacting with others, and seeing where those conversations lead. But then from there, LinkedIn is still text based, primarily. So polls, text only, text and image,
hmm,
is what really gets pushed.
wow,
Video, for certain people, it works really well. For most people, it doesn't.
yep,
And that's it's the platform,
hmm,
and there's nothing really that can be done there. But there's other platforms where video does very well. TikTok, obviously. Instagram is going basically, they're trying to convert basically all the video and less to text and images.
hmm,
So if you're good at video and you're good on camera and you're good interacting with people through social media that way, well, LinkedIn might not be the spot. It might be TikTok. It might
hmm,
be Instagram. A year ago, I hopped on the TikTok for the first time.
yeah,
I went to over 5,000 followers in less than a month.
wow, wow,
And it was all boring tax, business owner stuff. It was, my biggest video ever was about the standard mileage rate. I basically
hmm,
was like, the standard mileage rate this year is 56 cents. That was basically the gist of the video.
yeah,
But what it did is it started conversation. So it was basically it was basically a year ago. So it was January. People were starting to think about taxes, filing their
hmm,
taxes. So it was very topical, it was very top of mind. But it got them into thinking, well, what about they started asking all these questions in the comments. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about
yeah,
this? What about this? So that told the TikTok algorithm, this is valuable content, even though to me it was boring as anything could be.
yeah,
But to all those business owners out there that don't have an accountant, have been using TurboTax to file things on their own,
yep,
or they just started a business in 2020 because they lost their job and now they have this for the first time,
yeah,
it was their chance to ask all these questions. So that
wow,
So some of them I could answer because, you know, it applied to everybody. Other ones I was basically like, you know, set up a consult with me and let's talk from there.
Yeah.
But that got over 50,000 views on TikTok.
Wow.
I posted literally the exact same video on LinkedIn and it got 200 views. So, you know, part of it, you know, it's the platform, it's who's on there, it's when you post things like that. But, you know, getting back to the, you know, to the habits and the processes and the patterns, you got to do stuff regularly. You know, if you post twice, don't see any results and stop, well, you're never going to see results.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of fight through those initial, you know, doldrums of nobody saw your post, nobody reacted to your post, nobody commented on your post, to by posting regularly, then it tells the algorithm, hey, this person is posting regularly.
Yeah.
We should show this to more people now, instead of, well, they posted once and then 3 months later they posted again.
Yeah.
The algorithm is like, you might as well not post in those circumstances. So, you know, so it's getting like that comfortable schedule. It doesn't have to be every day. You know, maybe it's 3 days a week, maybe it's 2 days a week, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's, you know, every Wednesday you make one fabulous post a week.
Yeah.
But again, you tell everybody this is when I post. You know, you trumpet that all over the place. Like, you know, like literally on every one of my posts now, the last line is see you tomorrow, or if it's Friday, see you Monday at 3:57 p.m. Eastern.
Wow.
Because it re-ingrains in that fact, oh, he posts at 3:57 Eastern every day, as long as they read to the bottom. So, you know, it's getting those pieces in place and getting comfortable with how the process works. Like if I look back at, you know, 2.5 years ago when I really got started on LinkedIn, my post, it was just text from top to bottom.
Yeah.
There was no spaces, there was no emojis, it was just literally like a paragraph. And that's hard to read, especially on a phone.
Yep.
And there's no hook, so there's nothing getting them to want to read all of that. You know, if they do hit see more and they see it's just a long block of text, they're gone. Like you got the view, you know, hooray, but you didn't get anything else from it. So by chopping things up, you know, into paragraphs, into bulleted lists and things like that, throwing an emoji in there every once in a while when it makes sense, you know, adding that personality into it. And, you know, I post about business and finances. 90% of the time. And then I'll throw in the random should there be beans and chili post. Or, you know, like during December, I like to sing. I sang holiday songs and recorded those and posted those videos. You know, I talk about golf, I talk about sports. You know, so there's certain other aspects of me that I drop in there for every once in a while. And the way that I also hook people in is my about section has all that stuff in there. So it has that I'm a Vikings fan, it has that I golf, it has that I, you know, that I sing. So for people that are looking for that, oh, this is actually a human being. This isn't just someone trying to sell me something. This isn't just somebody trying to get me to buy their service. This is an actual human being. Oh, well, now I actually want to work with that human being. Because they're a human being and not a robot.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir, quite frankly. I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because this is stuff I need to instill into my brain and my brand. So
but even just the, you know, the logo on your shirt. You know, talking about the Celtics, it's basketball season. You know, you know, I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm kind of a Bucks fan. They were never good when I was a kid. So there wasn't much to root for. You know, even though they had, you know, like Ray Allen, which, you know, you got the better years of Ray Allen than the Bucks did. But you know, it's basketball season. It's it's something that, again, it adds that personal aspect to you. And if there's someone else out there that's a Celtics fan or a basketball fan, it gives you something to relate on. You know, when I talk about the Minnesota Vikings and how they've, you know, ruined my life for 30 years, I get, you know, all these Viking fans wander in, you know, into my comment, and it's like, were you like searching for like Minnesota Vikings, like in the search bar, and my you know, post or comment popped up? Or did the algorithm then tell them, hey, you're a Vikings fan too, here's this guy that talked about, the Vikings,
Yep.
Or when Mike Zimmer got, let go a couple weeks ago, and I posted, "Can Kirk Cousins go with?" There were two very different sides to the responses to that comment.
Yeah.
There were the supporters of him and the people that are like, "Yes, please, can he go too?" So,
Right.
it's like, it's a bonding experience. And, that those personal aspects really, it makes the sales process a lot easier, because when they've already bought in, they're like, "Oh, yeah, he likes the Vikings. He likes to golf.
Wow.
He likes to, go to baseball games and do that kind of stuff." Yeah, that's someone that I can get along with. And other people, it's the opposite. They're like, "I don't need any. I don't want to talk. I just want to talk my numbers and my finances."
Yeah.
And I can do that, but there's someone else out there probably that's a better fit.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And that's okay.
Yep.
And, and that's how I approach it. Is I am not everyone's cup of tea, and I am well aware of that. But I'm a lot more people's cup of tea than a lot of the other people that I've run into in accounting and finances over the years.
Seriously, come on, man. That's awesome. And yeah, you give just about every accountant out there a run for their money. So, Adam, this has been an awesome conversation, man. I again thank you for taking the time and providing the wisdom. I do have one final question that we like to close every episode with, and before that, I'd love to give you just a minute or two to plug anything you'd like. How can the audience help you? How can they get in contact with you? Aside from rooting for the Minnesota Vikings or the Milwaukee Bucks, what can we do to serve Adam Knihtila?
Yeah, so basically across everywhere on social media, I go by CFO Adam. So it makes it much easier than trying to pronounce my last name, which you did. You did very well at the start of the episode. So kudos there. But again, yeah, I've got my 100K challenge where basically I'll find $100,000 in additional revenue in 45 minutes.
Yep.
So it's on my LinkedIn profile. It's on my homepage, which is adamkae.com. Then go there, set up that consult. Literally 45 minutes. I'll find them 100K. Again, like I said, I've got that floor of basically a $500,000 revenue business. But anyone over that, I haven't had one yet that I haven't been able to find 100K for. So,
that's incredible.
So maybe that'll give some more people that, the opportunity to be like, I'm going to be the first one that he doesn't find out, just to say that they're that one, person. But yeah, otherwise, 3:57 p.m. Eastern, I post every day on LinkedIn. The posting on the other social media kind of varies a little bit more, just because I don't have as big a following, and I don't spend as much time on those as I do on LinkedIn. But 3:57 p.m. Eastern.
Wow, that's awesome, Adam. Well, I thank you for all the laughs and all the shares. The final question that we have, and every guest gets to answer it, Adam, is what is one truth about money that most people regard as myth?
That is a solid question. I like that. I think the one that that I've come to appreciate is that making money is hard.
Wow. Yep.
And I would say that in a lot of cases that is a myth. Because there's lots of ways to make money. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's blind luck, and sometimes it's pure determination. But money, there's abundant money out there, and there's plenty of money for every business owner or every potential business owner out there. And otherwise you wouldn't get Amazons and Googles and Teslas and everyone else coming along, because they're like, oh well, the markets are all already saturated, so I might as well not even try. No, there's money out there. Find your community, find your people, find your clients, and you'll be amazed how much money comes rolling in.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I think that's a great way to cap this off. Money is so abundant that Adam will find you $100,000 lying in your couch. Be sure to reach out to him, LinkedIn. I'll plug his website in the show notes. Adam, once again, thank you, man, for your time. I look forward to releasing the episode, and even more look forward to growing this relationship, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Have a great day, man.